Okay, so there are so many exciting things happening in Intramuros and in Bohol. So, Attorney Asido, it seems like you really are together with other agencies, attached agencies also of the DOT. You're developing really what we call a tourism precinct or tourism bubble. So, really very exciting gathering places for locals and tourists. Okay, so the two of you actually talked about cultural preservation, cultural asset management, also as a way also to promote sustainability. So in terms of, let's say, challenges, let's say in the case of Bohol, how do we now integrate this culture of tourism in the establishments and also in the communities so that sustainable tourism actually becomes an agenda of the entire, let's say, province?
In the case of Bohol, the efforts are already being undertaken, but I don't think that's enough, and we shouldn't stop improving. There's a need for more awareness, especially at the even starting at the grade school level, and especially a very useful and helpful group would be the students of tourism and hospitality, because they will be our frontliners. They will, in the future, be our managers, and they will be the ones who will be facing our visitors. And they should be among the first to know what we have and what we should treasure, especially in terms of our cultural assets. It's good, let me just add, it's good that in Bohol there are new developments. Like I said, the churches that fell or collapsed during the earthquake have been fully restored, and some are still in the process of restoration. And we have a new National Museum branch. It used to be the old Capitol building that was damaged by the earthquake, that was taken over by the National Museum. So now it's a brand new, fully restored structure, and it's starting to get filled with heritage and other treasures that are museum quality.
A major, actually, recommendation of Dr. Kimba earlier as part of the lessons from Boracay is to also address the issue of informal settlers, right? And Attorney Asido, you presented actually a framework for inclusive development. So may we know more or less like what to expect in terms of maybe more specifics or concrete or visible, no, things that we could see this year and maybe in the next year or two?
In terms of Intramuros, there are actually two challenges that were decided to confront with. One is the problem of the informal settlers. If you'll notice, there are still a number of informal settlers inside the district. The challenge basically right now is that they all live in private property. Wala na pong nakatira sa public land inside Intramuros. So what we've decided, and this is we have doing right now with the national housing agencies, is that by next week, on the 27th of March, we will be signing with the Socialized Housing Finance Corporation a program that will address the informal settlers issue already. We have identified two major communities that will be the initial target for movement of the informal settlers. But what is unique about this program is that it's a socialized housing approach. And it's not just a matter of moving people outside the district, hindi lang puro relocation, but we are also ensuring that there will be adequate social security in terms of their movement as well. So in the next 3 years, basically that is the major direction that we wanted already to address the informal settlers issue. There are 892 families actually informally living inside, but to relocate them is not just the answer. We need to ensure that wherever they will be moving, meron pong social security. There is also the means that they will be able to earn their livelihood. Karamihan po sa kanila, and you know this for a fact, yung mga students, is that they are selling here inside, mga vendors, they are pedicab drivers as well. So what we are trying to assure them is that any major change will also guarantee that they will be able to do continue as well, perhaps their business inside the district properly already. Hindi na po yung in terms of improper regulation.
Thank you, Attorney Asido. I also would like to inquire with Attorney Nunag, also the case of the Bajaos and also the other informal settlers, no, in Bohol. So how are you addressing this as part of sustainable tourism?
That's really something that needs to be adequately addressed, because there have been efforts in the past, but very insufficient. The presence of the Bajaos, who typically live at the fringe of land and partly onshore, is now a continuing threat to the biodiversity and the ecological balance, especially of the Tagbilaran-Dawis channel. In fact, there's always a red tide pronouncement in that area. It's a significant number of families. They're growing, and of course, it's election time. They are voters, so that it has become a very serious challenge. Also, in terms of educating them, we're trying to get them into the schools, but the dropout rate is very high. So that has always been a challenge for the various provincial and municipal administrations where this community is located.
Okay.
Ongoing project.
Thank you, Attorney Nunag. There are fears that with the opening of the new Bohol International Airport in the island of Panglao, there will be, unexpected over-concentration, or as they call it, over-tourism in the island of Panglao because of the attractions of Alona Beach plus all the other resorts in that island. Now, may we know what, for example, the province of Bohol or the private sector and the communities are doing to ensure that we don't, go down, let's say, or we experienced what happened in the case of Barangay. So are there initiatives to disperse, for example, tourism to the other parts of Bohol?
In terms of dispersal, there have been initiatives already to bring some of the accommodation facilities to the mainland, but these are small efforts and I think baby steps. The bigger developments continue to be in the island of Panglao, and what is encouraging is that our main issue really there is wastewater management, particularly in the Alona area, which is our pocket Boracay. There have already been discussions with the TIEZA, with the support of the World Bank, to fund a large-scale wastewater management system on the island of Panglao. There are still issues about easements. Let us see if after the elections moves will be done to enforce the violation, to enforce action against the violators. And we hope that the authorities will also be as firm as they were in Boracay, especially in the areas affected by these regulations. The private sector, particularly the Tourism Council, the Chamber of Commerce, the Association of Hotels and Resorts, have already come up with several resolutions urging the local government to enforce the environmental and easement regulations. We're still waiting for that until after the elections.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Nunag. I'd like to invite members from the audience to ask questions to Attorney Nunag and to Attorney Asido. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Chris Baleva. I'm from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. I'd just like to clarify, I'd just like to see clarification as regards to the status of the Bajau in Panglao Island. I'm wondering if they are migrants or if they are actually the indigenous peoples of Panglao Island, because I heard that they were referred to as informal settlers, so I'm a bit concerned about that. So perhaps a little clarification on the matter would be helpful. Thank you, sir.
They're all migrants from Mindanao.
Thank you. Any other questions?
John Forbes, AmCham again. On Intramuros, of course, you didn't have the advantage of, say, Penang or Hanoi, of not being badly destroyed under the Second World War, so you've been rebuilding. But that was over 70 years ago. At what point will you actually restore, or are you trying to restore, the entire Intramuros, what's within the walls, to what it was before? Because, and what will that cost, and how many administrations will it take? Because you have a tremendous complex here between what's inside the walls and the historic buildings that are nearby, that can be a major tourism attraction in the world, not just in Asia.
Thank you for the question. Basically, the problem for the past 40 years is that every administrator who came in has his own perspective of what should be the redevelopment. But when we came in, we decided perhaps that now is not really the time to push for what we perceive to be a redevelopment. We should instead focus on what we need to conserve, because actually the value of the space is on the heritage aspect. And this I've said even to the Secretary of Tourism, that in terms of an urban heritage space like Intramuros, tourism should really be secondary. What we should matter really is the proper conservation of the space. If there is proper conservation, there are proper frameworks, plans in place, and that there are actually inclusivity of how that plan is going to be implemented in terms of the people who are actually living, staying inside, then tourists will actually follow. So what we are doing right now is basically to set that framework already through the conservation management plan. And that plan is actually the framework for any redevelopment effort later.
Thank you, Attorney Guiller. Questions from our young, very, very young students here.
Hi, good morning, sir. I'm Harvey from De La Salle Araneta University. We live in this age where the interest for history, culture, and heritage has been reignited, maybe because of social media and films such as General Luna and Goyo. I guess my question is, as part of the younger generation and a part of as future tourism practitioners, where should we go from here? What can we do to help improve this this part of our tourism industry?
I think the answer can be, the one best answer will be creativity. The youth today are very creative. So what we've been doing right now, for instance, in Intramuros, is not to just limit ourselves to the usual marketing and communications of products. So we've been gone to the extent, for example, of what we now have, Intramuros special edition beep cards. Those beep cards, as you're aware of, can be used for the e-treks inside the district. And right now, they can also be used for the LRT, MRT. So in integration aspect, we are not just marketing and communicating the district, but we are also using the available technologies right now. And we are heavily reliant on social media, but the messaging has to be precise also. And yun yung usual, we're very precise on the messaging. And what we want basically is to ensure na yung heritage, culture, should be creatively praised in such a manner na maiintindihan ng bagong generation. So, an example will be like next month for August, we're leading the way, for example, of an intramuros open cinema. So there are 2 films that will actually be shown for free. The story of Jose Abad Santos, who died in the Second World War. Then we will again rescreen Ang Larawan. So these are actually 2 stories of the struggle of Filipinos and 2 historical narratives set. One is actually set inside Intramuros, yung Larawan, and these are actually being offered for free for people and for the younger generation to really be more appreciative of. Kaya the key basically is ensuring that everything be done creatively.
And Attorney Nunag?
I think there are 2 skills of the youth that could be tapped for heritage preservation. One is the storytelling aspect. The young ones are very good storytellers, and they could address their audience, especially also the youth. And with the use of social media, they're very high-tech. They can very quickly and widely disseminate what they know. And that would be a big contribution to heritage preservation if we sort of direct these skills towards telling the gospel of preservation of our heritage.
Okay, thank you very much, Attorney Nunag. Okay, so with this discussion, I'd like to thank everyone, and I'd like to close this second half of the Travel Talk session. So let's all give a round of applause to Attorney Nunag and to Attorney Guiller Asido for joining us this morning and sharing their expertise on cultural asset preservation and management. Thank you.